Alright, so I got some breaking news here for you guys as Elon Musk, the single richest man on the face of the planet, has officially bought Twitter. So this is a story that we've been keeping up with over the last number of weeks. If you guys remember, initially he bought that like roughly 9% stake in Twitter, making him the single largest shareholder. And then there were sort of these discussions going on as to whether or not he would join the board of directors, and that fell through. And then after that, he essentially came out and tried to push for basically a hostile takeover of the entire company. And it looks like that he has succeeded in doing that. So here from the LA Times, they say Elon Musk reaches $44 billion deal to buy Twitter. So I'm going to read some of the details as to how this all played out and exactly what the deal is encompassing. And then I'll give you guys my opinion as to whether or not I think that this is a good idea. But they say Elon Musk's bid to buy Twitter and take the company private succeeded on Monday, 11 days after the world's wealthiest man first announced that he'd like to buy the social media firm. And Twitter's board approved Musk's approximately $44 billion offer on Monday after 11 days of back and forth. And here's what Elon had to say. He says free speech is the bedrock of a functioning democracy. True. And Twitter is the digital town square where matters vital to the future of humanity are debated. Also true. And he continues saying, I also want to make Twitter better than ever by enhancing the product with new features. I'm curious as to exactly what those new features are going to be. He's been talking about, floating out ideas like the edit button, which I think would be absolutely terrible for a number of different reasons. But he also says he's going to be making the algorithms open source to increase trust. That seems absolutely fantastic. Defeating spam bots, that would also be pretty great. And authenticating all humans, not exactly sure what he means by that. So listen, at the surface level, a couple of these different changes to the policy of how Twitter is operating, I think would be a good thing. Now, there's two different questions to be, had in this entire discussion and debate as to whether or not this is a good thing, right? On the one hand, you can make a comparison to how Twitter has been run by the previous board of directors and by the shareholders that had previously owned this company before Elon Musk took it over. And if the conversation is, could Elon Musk potentially run the company better or potentially offer a more free platform for users? Maybe, I don't know. That's yet to be seen. We'll have to see exactly how this plays out. But that's a completely different question than the one that I think is much more important, which is why should any private entity, one single person or the single wealthiest man on the planet or a board of directors, why should a private for-profit company own what he deems to be the modern day public town square in the first place? And I think that's really where most of the debate should be. Now, he could make some decent policy changes or add some features that people like, but that's not really the fundamental question here. If you consider Twitter and other social media platforms to be the modern day public town square, well, the modern day public town square shouldn't be owned by a single person or a board of directors, in my opinion. But they continue with more details saying the company's leadership initially tried to fend off the bid, adopting a poison pill measure that would make a hostile takeover difficult. But Musk announced that he had a $46.5 billion in financing lined up in filings with the Securities and Exchange Commission on Thursday, prompting Twitter's board to meet on Sunday to discuss the bid. And following that meeting, the board opened negotiations with Musk that stretched late into the night, according to reporting by the New York Times. And the deal values Twitter stock at roughly $54 per share, above the $39 per share that the stock was trading at before Musk's interest in the company became clear in early April when he purchased that 9% stake in the company, but also well below the stock's 2021 high price of $77 per share. Now, I'm not, an economics professional in any sense of the word, so I'm not really sure exactly how fair this offer is, but that's not really the main point. They say Musk stated that his interest in Twitter is motivated not by the company's finances, but by its role as a public forum and his belief that he could manage the platform better than its current leadership. And he said having a public platform that is maximally trusted and broadly inclusive is extremely important to the future of civilization, Musk said at a public interview on April 14th, a day after he announced his offer to buy the company. And he said, I don't care about the economics at all. Now, I find that kind of hard to believe. We're talking about the wealthiest man on the planet. I don't really believe that his intentions are not necessarily tied to perceived economic benefits that he could derive from this. But if he was actually true to his word, and he does want this to be a more free and fair platform for people to debate things, for people to have controversial opinions, I don't think that would necessarily be a bad thing. Now, there is an extent that you can go way too far in unlimiting the type of speech that is allowed on platforms. Obviously, You don't want to allow direct threats of violence. You don't want to allow other things that are currently, not applicable to First Amendment protections, things that are just straight up illegal. But also, I mean, if you just look at other social media platforms that have risen up, especially from conservatives that have tried to overtake Twitter and provide some sort of a free speech alternative, well, either they're being disingenuous and they're not actually, purist free speech platforms, and they do actually ban users, and they do actually have, policies in place to prevent certain types of speech. Or on the other hand, if you actually do make it a completely free speech platform, then usually what happens is it basically just devolves into like, a Nazi hellhole where people are pushing just absolutely insane ideologies, etc. So there is kind of a limit to that. You do have to have some guardrails in place, but I do think that Twitter and other social media platforms, including especially YouTube, I would argue, do go way over the top with their algorithms or their policies in censoring things that are deemed to be outside of the mainstream discourse. But finally, they say that he elaborated on this theme in the SEC filing, writing, "I invested in Twitter as I believe in its potential to be a platform for free speech around the globe, and I believe free speech is a societal imperative for a functioning democracy, and that he believes the company will neither thrive nor serve this societal imperative in its current form." So this statement here, that it's not serving that in its current form, I think you could argue that that's true. Now, on the other hand, is Elon Musk going to be the type of guy who is actually, believing in free speech and is actually a free speech absolutist, as he calls himself? Well, just to remind you guys exactly the type of behavior that he has engaged in previously that should shed a little bit of doubt on his ability to be this free speech absolutist. Here from Business Insider, just as a reminder, they say, despite calling himself a free speech absolutist, Elon Musk has a history of retaliation against employees and critics. And they give a couple examples down here saying, in one instance, Fast Company reported that Musk found the entity or the identity of a would-be anonymous blogger who posted negative stock analysis of Tesla and contacted their employer, threatening to sue, according to the blogger, and the poster deactivated his social media accounts and stopped posting Tesla altogether. And they give another example saying, in another incident, a journalist who had been critical of the Tesla Model X launch event was called by Musk personally and had their order for a Model X canceled. And they also say former employees have reported being fired for disagreeing with the CEO, for reporting racist harassment, and of course, Tesla is still facing that massive, multi-million-dollar discrimination lawsuit in California for their, a vehement racism that is evident in their factories in California, or for simply being in Elon Musk's way. And of course, Musk has denied the allegations of rage-firing employees and says that his criticism of Twitter is based on a fundamental belief in freedom of speech. And he argued in a tweet that since Twitter is a de facto public town square, the company's posting policy undermines democracy. So again, it's going to be interesting to see exactly what he means by this, because if you truly do believe that Twitter and other social media platforms are the de facto public town square, well, when the fuck in history has the public town square been owned by a single billionaire? I mean, that's not what public town square means. If you actually wanted it to be considered in the public domain or in the public's interest, then you should regulate it as a public utility. You shouldn't have it be privately owned by a board of directors or by a single billionaire, whether or not the policies that he's going to implement could be beneficial or not. The point is, you shouldn't have it in the hands of a single person if it is truly the modern day public town square, which I do agree that it is. So that's the fundamental question, in my opinion. Again, just another example of why I wouldn't exactly trust Elon Musk to have the most, stable examination of what should be included on this platform. This was a recent tweet that was put out about Netflix after they raised their prices and made a couple other different policy adjustments, how deeply their stock has tanked in the wake of this. So they say Netflix shares cratered 20% after the company reported it lost subscribers for the first time in more than 10 years. And this was his response. He says, "The woke mind virus is making Netflix unwatchable." The woke mind virus. This isn't even the first time that he's used that phrase, but what the fuck does that even mean? I mean, I guess he's just, going against like what he perceives to be SJWs and, woke leftists who are pushing back against things, but he clearly is having a deranged view of the current political landscape on Twitter or on Netflix as well. The reason why Netflix stock tumbled and the reason why Netflix was losing subscribers is because they raised their prices and because they've started to unroll policies like potentially implementing ads within this product that previously didn't have them. I mean, there are so many different things that you could critique Netflix for to explain this drop in subscribers for them, but it's definitely not the woke mind virus. And then to top it off here, somebody responded to him and said, the woke mind virus is the biggest threat to civilization. The biggest threat to civilization. And he said, yes, Okay, so again, not exactly going to be, inherently trustworthy of a single billionaire having control over what he calls the public town square, while he simultaneously believes that the woke mind virus is the biggest threat facing human civilization. I mean, maybe I would point to things like, I don't know, climate change, or, a potential of sparking off with World War III with massively increasing military budgets that we've seen. I just saw reports that global military spending has exceeded $2 trillion for the first time. There are many different things that you could point to on a global scale that would be a much bigger threat to civilization, or human civilization as we know it, than the fucking woke mind virus, whatever the fuck that means. So listen, at the end of the day, I'm kind of repeating myself at this point, but if you actually believe that the public town square, or that Twitter is the public town square along with these other social media platforms, then okay, fine, Elon Musk, you should open this to be regulated as a public utility, so that instead of having one single authoritarian capitalist have complete unitary control or unilateral control over the public town square, make it open for potential democratic checks on this platform, and open it up to be regulated as a public utility. It seems like if you actually believed that it is the town square, that's the route that you would go. So at the end of the day, I don't believe that this is going to be a good thing. Now again, there's two different paths to this. Could he be better than the current Twitter CEOs and board of directors? Maybe, and maybe some of the policies that he implements at Twitter I will agree with, like the open sourcing of algorithms. I think that's a fantastic idea. But at the end of the day, the underlying message is the same. If you believe that these should be treated as the public town squares, then fine, regulate them as public utilities.